the last topic in which Mr. Pinkston, we'll start with you because you mentioned it earlier, but the war on drugs. Can you just when was this? How recent was it? And what what is it that the people should know about it?
It started just a few decades ago and is still going on. So what this was another way to quote unquote get black folks back to the plantation or get us back to the jails. So the war on drugs, it was started by, first of all, criminalizing drugs. Because we do know that, 60s, 70s, drugs were a popular thing to do. That's just a fact. A lot of people smoked, but all of a sudden, it's illegal. And you would expect everybody to be judged under this law, everybody to be under attack. But that wasn't the case. It was the black neighborhoods, and it was for things such as crack and weed, mostly. One of those quite detrimental, the other not so much. Some would argue not at all, but we are still being heavily fined for it. There are some cases, white people, if they're found with possession of drugs, don't get charged at all. Let a black person be found, with a little dime bag, 2, 5, 10 years in jail. You know, and this goes even in policing on campuses. You go to a PWI and smoke all day, probably not get kicked out. I know from experience that in HBCU, you have a higher chance of being reprimanded for having drugs on campus. So this is leaked into our own communities, policing these things and harming us in the face of the law.
All right. So, do you guys have any final comments? Any final words that you would like to say?
I just want to say, Black people, go be great. You have heard some of our history. You can't put everything in one day, but just go be great. Let's build Wall Street back up in some way. You don't have to have the actual business, but what are you doing to help those that come after you? Are you educating them? Are you teaching them how to do one thing or another thing? Are you teaching them how to work with one another? Are you teaching them division? What is it that you're doing to contribute to building our population back up as they are trying to take us out? What will you do next?
I just want to offer words of encouragement. You do belong, okay? You are enough. The fight you're fighting, it is not in vain. You may get tired, please take your rest, but keep fighting. No matter how many times Black people have been put in shackles, we have overcome. And I'll end with this: we shall overcome again.
For sure. Appreciate that, fellas.